Dr. Tricia Pingel, welcome to the Rebels with the Root Cause show.
I'm so happy to be here. Let's do this, Tim.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm not gonna we're not gonna get into it too early, but there's a hip hop story in this whole, your journey through life, and I love it. And seeing you on the dance floor doing what you're doing, it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Even made me think maybe I can do that too. So just to get me to think that is a huge move for me. So thank you for that.
And you can. And the next time you come to Phoenix, come do it with me.
Okay.
I like challenges, Tim, so I'm going to give you one.
I do love challenges, right.
And
it's either Camelback Mountain or go hip-hop dancing. I think I'll do both. That sounds like a great idea. All righty. Well, as we start the show here, everybody knows that we really just want to dive into what your rebel story is. And, it can be a story where you're up against a system and you decided to bounce out. You're like, no more. Or it could be a life challenge that you or a family member went through and you're like, no more. I'm going to put my feet on the ground. Or I just got this awakening that I need to help and serve those who are in need of my help. And yours was from a model, which you started modeling at 9 months old.
Yeah, before I could walk.
A naturopathic doctor, yeah. So that's a big gap. Can you please fill us in as to what was it that made you want to become a naturopathic doctor?
Yeah, there was never an inkling that I would be a doctor as a kid. My mom was a professional model. She was equivalent to what a Victoria's Secret model would be in the 80s. She was that in the 60s. And my dad was a photographer for Sunset Films. I was born, I was cute, I was charismatic. They said, hey, let's throw this kid in front of the camera and she's going to be a star. And that's what she's going to be. And so my life was kind of already planned out for me when I was born. And that's exactly what they did. They put me in front of a camera. From the moment I was 9 months old, I was taught to live by what everyone else wanted. So I was taught to perform in my life. And there were times I'd be thrown on set and they're like, hey, these are your parents today. And that's very confusing to a kid. I'm like, well, those really aren't my parents, right? I learned that a yes was success and a no was failure, and went through my life modeling. I got into acting. I received a theater scholarship for college. The destiny was going to be that. That was it. And I signed with an agency in my teens, very young, was called to travel, was given a career basically in front of me. And something inside of me was like, I don't know if something's wrong about it. It feels normal for me to be in front of the spotlight, but I don't understand what it is. And I started to really look inside myself in my late teens and college and started to look at behavioral medicine. What makes somebody do what they do? And I kind of started to go the psychology route, started to look at behavioral mechanisms in animals, which led me into the veterinary route. So then I was going to become a veterinarian, started diving into all of the diagnostic skills that are required to be a vet, which are vast. I don't think a lot of people realize this, but an animal can't tell you what's wrong. So you have to be a really good diagnostician, and you have to be able to read the labs. You have to be able to read the body language. You have to be able to read the behavior. You have to read the room. You have to have the right energy with the animal to even get a needle in their arm, right? So veterinary medicine was very appealing to me, and that was my plan. My parents were blindsided. They were like, wait, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. Don't you have a theater scholarship? Like, what? And I think even within myself, if I'm honest, Tim, growing up in that environment of always having to be on and always having to be what everyone else wanted, I don't know if inside my true core, I believed I could be a doctor either. I think I just thought, well, I'm going to show that I'm smart, because I knew I had something in me that could change the world. And I think I've always known that. And so I was going to become a vet, and that was the plan. And right about that time, I got a call from my uncle that said, your dad just fell to the floor. He's had a stroke. We don't think he's going to make it. You need to leave right now, and you need to fly to Seattle, and you need to say goodbye to your father. And I was 24 years old. My dad just went downstairs that morning and opened the fridge. That's all he did. He woke up, went down to have breakfast, opened the fridge, reached in to grab something, and that was it. Hit his thalamus. He was unresponsive. He was in a medical coma. He could breathe on his own, so we couldn't pull the plug. And I went and I sat with him, and I asked for his guidance. And I just said, I don't understand why nobody can tell me what's going on. I can't find a doctor. Everyone just says, watch and wait. Nobody will explain the MRI to me. I know what I'm talking, like I'm educated. I couldn't get any answers. And I started to see a huge hole in the medical system at that point when it came to treating how they treated people, right? It was very much the white coat syndrome. We're on the top. We're better than you are. You're just going to have to wait and see. We're not going to give you any information. And I left there knowing that I would never see my dad again. I left and I went back and I said, you know what? There has to be a different way. There has to be a way that I can bring my charisma and my love of education and my love of the brain and behavior modification to be able to spread this to the world. And out of nowhere, the internet was around at that time, fairly new, but I go online and I don't know if there was some sort of like ad targeting at that point, but up pops this website for naturopathic medical school. And I thought, what the heck is that? And I took it. I've always been a risk taker. I've always been a quick decision maker. And I saw it and I applied and I got in and I started that fall. And that's how fast I became a doctor. And there was no thought behind it, which is weird. I think people spend their entire lives wanting to be a doctor, and it kind of fell in my lap. And that from there, which I know we'll dive into, everything else from there has literally fallen into my lap through experience, through just keeping the doors open. And my career has now been shaped from where it was then to where it is now by all of those opportunities that I'm so grateful for. And I'm still waiting. It's like every day I wake up, I'm like, oh, cool. What is going to fall in my lap today?
Well, let's talk about that journey as a doctor, of course, because you know that's you know, I've heard the story over and over about a family member or somebody had some health issues. And you got frustrated with the system, of course, and it was time now to make a decision, a life decision, to step out of what you were doing and step into this. And it sounds like you stepped into it fully, which is great. But it caused some issues with you. And you talk about this with regard to your adrenal fatigue and the irony of that. Why don't you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, you know, I knew when I graduated that I loved the endocrine system. So I knew that hormones were going to be part of whatever I did. I didn't even go to an internship. I went right to open my practice, dived into hormones, started treating. And throughout this time, one of my family members, I had 3 homes that I grew up in. I had my mom's house, my dad's house, and I had a third family that took me in. And I consider them my grandparents. And she started to decline with dementia. I was her power of attorney. I was her medical, you know, I made all the medical decisions for her. And so I started caring for her while I was also having young children, because I had this brilliant idea that I was going to have my first baby in my 4th year of med school. And I was going to have my second baby 1 year into practice. That was fun, you know?
Why not?
So I was doing all the things. And I don't think this is far off from most people out there, right? I was doing all the things. I was trying to take care of my body. I was trying to take care of my children. I was trying to take care of my family. My mom had recently been diagnosed with cancer. She was stable, but we were dealing with that, you know, and so I was just doing all the things. And I started to really notice how much, when I addressed the cortisol, when I really addressed the stress response in the body, how all the other hormones and all the other conditions would get better. I was treating things from celiac, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, doing a ton of GI issues, ton of primary care, thyroid, anything from headaches to hormone dysregulation. And all of the protocols that I had learned would help, but I wouldn't see that major needle mover until I started addressing the cortisol. So I started talking about it. I started getting out there, talking about it on YouTube. And all of a sudden I get a call, and this is unheard of. Like I said, it falls in your lap. I get a call from a major publisher and they go, "We want you to write a book on this." And I said, "I'm not a writer." I know what you're talking about.
This is before AI, right?
Just
so you had to write a book.
Right? Yeah, now I'm a writer.
Yep.
No,
Aren't we all?
You know, and they offered me this book deal, and I said no. I said I don't have time for this. Like, and I don't write. Like, and who am I? I'm nobody. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, "No, you're onto something here." And so I was quite the rebel at the time, because I published a book, was paid to publish a book on adrenal fatigue, and at that time, if I were to talk to any practitioner about adrenal fatigue, I got the eye roll. What? That's nothing. And still to this day, you get a few practitioners that don't recognize it, but we've come a long way. And at that point, my goal was, what are the adrenal glands? How are they tied in? How do they relate to all the conditions that we deal with in our country? And what can we do about it? And it was based on 4 pillars: nutrition, exercise, supplement, and mindset. And I was doing that myself, right? So surely I couldn't get adrenal fatigue because I was doing all the things. And what I started to realize is that I was just taking on too much and going back to what I grew up with, right? I was looking for yeses. I was looking for acceptance. I was looking for people to recognize me as someone important, but I was looking for external people to validate that for me because that had been trained in my body to do that. And when you live in a perfectionistic state or always living for other people's expectations and always expecting others to tell you who you are, and you struggle with your identity, you take a chronic cortisol situation. I mean, that's what that is. And no amount of diet, supplement, exercise, or general mindset is going to override that cortisol response. And I found myself bottomed out. I hated my life. I woke up every day and thought, why am I here? And it was just starting, you know, I was riding that wave of apparent success. Everyone from the outside would have said, wow, Tricia, you're still walking the runway. You have these beautiful children. You have an amazing husband, this beautiful house. You're growing this massive practice. Your life is perfect. And I didn't feel that. And then my mom started to die. And she helped me grow my practice. She was my front desk. Everything that I had built was tied to an identity with my mom. And to back off and watch her die and not be able to save her brought back all the grief of not being able to save my dad, not being able to save my grandmother, you know, made me feel more like a failure. And I found myself in a complete depression, if I'm honest. And, you know, it's funny, people ask, well, were you suicidal? And I say this because this relates, I think, to a lot of people, is no, I wasn't. I wasn't going to kill myself, but I wasn't living. I woke up every day and I was going through the motions. And I was doing all the things right. I was following the protocol and it wasn't working. And that's when I had to make a different choice. And that's where I started to really recognize the impact of joy and really coming forward as our authentic selves and really letting go of this expectation that we let others dictate who we are supposed to be. We live in a world of social media where we're comparing ourselves to everybody. And we could have all of this stress around us. And guess what, guys? It's not going anywhere. There's stress everywhere, right?
Yeah, of course.
Things are always going to happen. There are always things that are going to hit the fan. You're always going to want to do it later when things get better. We cannot remove the stressors in our life, but we can remove what we think of them, how we process them, and how we react to them. And that's what I found myself doing as I said, look, I'm just going to show up as Tricia, and I'm going to go back and do one thing that I loved to do more than anything in the world when I was a kid, and that was dance. My dad was a musician. I grew up listening to music. I grew up dancing. That was something that allowed me to express myself in a very physical and mental way. When you're learning choreography and listening to music, you don't have time to worry about the bear coming around the corner tomorrow. You just have to be in the moment. And that's what I started to do. And I've started to rebuild my life. That was 10 years ago. In the last 10 years, I have rebuilt my life back to Tricia, to who I am, to who I love. And to be honest, you either love me or you don't. And that's okay with me now. But it's allowed me to treat my patients differently too. And the area of mindset medicine and of changing the way that we view stress has become so much more of a mission for me because we are generationally teaching burnout. We're teaching burnout. We're teaching perfectionism. We're teaching imposter syndrome. And this is only hindering us and our future generations. And that's really what breaks my heart more than anything right now in the area of medicine is we're chasing the symptoms of stress, but we're not actually changing how our body reacts to stress. And people are doing it wrong. Even integrative physicians, sorry guys, a lot of you are treating adrenals wrong as well because you're looking at making us more better to able to adapt to the stress, but we're not changing the stress to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So one of the things I'd love to get into, because you talk about this, is this generational stress, right? The children. And we always look back at and say, you know, how can we stop what's going on right now with regards to, you know, children, whether they're eating the wrong diet, whether they're doing the wrong things. You know, we want to break habits that are not good, and they're learning honestly from us, and we learned it from our parents. So one of the things you talked about was around stress and about how children are seeing what it is that we're doing as parents, and they're adopting that, and they're basically getting their body ready for the challenges that we're facing, right? So they're almost building themselves up to be resilient against the stress, which is quite honestly a not the right way to do it, because we're stressing them out by then building up their bodies to be resilient against the stress.
Yeah. What are we modeling, right? What are we modeling for future generations? And so we have these things in our brain called mirror neurons, and these start from infancy. You know, if you're in a playground and your child falls down, they look to you. Am I hurt? They don't know.
Right.
They're looking for
Well,
your reaction, right?
yeah, and that's so funny you say that, because I read the story or this study about if a kid falls, they're looking at you saying, "Oh my God, that was traumatic," and they can see it in your eyes and your face, and they cry really loud, versus like, "Oh, it's fine," and they kind of like, "Oh, okay, I'll just get up and brush it off and move on."
Well, 100%. So
Yeah.
if they fall down and you freak out, you've taught them that falling down is scary, right?
Yeah.
So we start programming our brains from the time we're born. It's beautiful, right? And we can be well-intentioned parents, but what we're doing is more important than what we're saying, right? If we're freaking out over every little moment, what are we teaching them? I have a horrific trauma moment as a parent that I will never forget is I
Don't
need
we
to
all?
let it go. Honestly, I need to let it go.
Well,
But
this is your time, Tricia. We can
I know.
release it right now as soon as
Yeah.
you say it.
No, it was so silly too. And I'm sure everyone's done this, but it was at the height of where I was going through everything in my career and my kids were little, and I don't remember which boy it was, but I was in the kitchen and my brain was doing one thing and I was like answering emails on another thing and whatever. And he walked in the kitchen. He's like, "Mom, I'm hungry. Can I have a sandwich?" And I was like, "What? I don't have time. Like what?" And I went off on him. And I say to this moment, it traumatizes me that I would do that. But these stressful moments that we get caught up in, they don't remember what I said, but they certainly remember that they bothered me, right? And what did I teach them and train their brain at that moment, right? And how are they now going to react when they're multitasking? Because now they've got things beeping at them, a phone in their pocket, a laptop in front of them, things coming at them. Now, how are they going to respond, right? They're going to learn what I taught them, unfortunately. And this is how we learn. And so we are creating generational burnout. And in my generation, my parents were, they were boomers. They were hard workers. The harder you work, the better you are, the more successful they are. The more you move up the ladder, the more success, the better you're going to be. And so I learned that I had to keep pushing. I had to push and push and push. I had to get the credentials. I had to be better. I had to be the best at everything. I had to beat out my competition, right? And what that has built is a dysregulated nervous system where we are constantly binging the sympathetic nervous system. And just for a quick review, we have two of these nervous systems in our autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic, which is our fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. And health comes in the parasympathetic. That's where we maintain our detoxification. It's where we digest our food. It's where we clear out the toxins and all these things. Is where we repair cells, our immune system. And our generation started to teach my generation that the harder you work, the harder you go, the more you stay in that fight or flight, the more successful you are. And over time, our bodies have adapted because they're amazing. Our adrenal glands have adapted us to stress. And now we're living in a higher stress state as a baseline. And we're now teaching the next generation that you have to be in a high stress state and always be on, right? And always be aware. And then we have social media and media in general coming in, planting these little bits of information that are leaving our brain to start to interpret that. And we're having anxiety response. And our teens, have the highest anxiety and suicide rate that they've ever had. We have children debating suicide at 8 or 9, right? We have children at 8 talking about politics. Where are they getting all this information and what are we teaching them about responding to it? When we live in a fear state, and that could be rushing to that kid on the playground when they fall down, that could be verbally reacting to news stories in front of our kids when they're little and talking about how horrific it is or whatnot. What are we teaching them and how are their nervous systems now responding? And this is why I'm fully believe this is why we see more diabetes, more heart disease, more obesity, more depression, more anxiety, more gut issues, more autoimmunity, more cancer, right? We're seeing all this in younger people because their systems are so dysregulated. And guess what? We did that. And it's up to us as parents to stop it. We have to stop it. And we have to come back to joy, connection, love, understanding, And honestly, letting go of this desire to always compete with everything. There is such a trust that's needed in our society to trust the path. I didn't know I would end up where I was. I just had to trust the path. I still don't know where I'm going. I just have to trust the path. And a lot of people are afraid to relinquish that control because of what we've been trained. And it's impacting everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to share a story, actually.
I love it.
I'm not sure if this is going to be applicable, but I think it is in many cases. When I was raising, with my wife at the time, raising our children, I remember this, like we had built this house and we had this gate and this long driveway and this little courtyard. And we're like, okay, you can play in the courtyard, but you can't go outside of the area because you might get kidnapped. Right. So we set this fear into them. And what was so funny about it is that, it's like we put them out there in the courtyard. It's like, okay, here's all your toys, go play. And I remember like a minute later, they were looking out there. They're in complete, like, what do we do? Like, they were like, I don't know what to do. Like, you put all these toys in front of me, but we have this little box that you put us in and I can't go explore and like go smell the flowers or go run on the grass because it was a concrete area. Mm-hmm. And then I realized as I'm standing there, I'm like, my parents had no idea where I was.
None.
Probably for days, right? I was gone. Like summertime, I was gone, like rolling in the canyon or rolling on the street with my friends on the bike. And I remember reading this other study about the percentage of kidnapping per capita, versus when I was a child, and the rates never really changed. I think it was this hyper stimulus of whether it was the movie industry, whatever it was back in the day, or the news, how it has to always be this breaking news, like some kid was kidnapped and there was this search going on around the county or around the state, whatever it is. And I think it just made everybody so tense that they get into this mode of protection. Like you said, this flight or fright, right? And they get into that system or like, if I put my kids out on the street, they're going to be gone. Somebody's going to kidnap them. And I remember, like, because I know you're talking about Disneyland that you were just on, just walking through Disneyland. It's like, you see these kids now running around. Of course, they're on like tethers. It's because the parents don't want to lose them. Of course, you never want to lose your child, but it's this fear of, like, if you just take your eye off them 1 second, they're going to be kidnapped. And there might be some situations where that happens, especially in those types of environments. But you're absolutely right. There's this sense of, we're just too tense. And I just think it's the flow of information. There's so much information coming in. We don't know how to process it. What's right? What's wrong? Is this going to happen to me? Is this going to happen to my children, to my parents, whatever it is? So you're right. And I know you're doing a lot of work right now on the brain around stress. So why don't you dive into the work that you've been doing with EEG? Because I think that's really important to understand what the brain is processing and how we can then start to adapt to these, to changing it, like you made mention of.
Yeah, I have to say I lost my 4-year-old in Disneyland many years ago because I didn't have a tether.
Yeah, right.
And it was sheer panic. And he had just decided to hang out behind the wall where all the characters came in.
Oh.
Because it was cool and it was quiet.
A future actor there at the at Disneyland. Yeah.
And
cast member, I guess what they call them, cast members.
Member.
That's what
your story, I was like, oh yeah, I lost my kid in Bugs Land. But what a great parent I am. But maybe I was because I let him wander a little bit and experience that, I guess. And that's such a great point because we do all of those little things every day and it is an overstimulation, right? And we're reacting to that. We're trying to be these great parents when in fact we need to start stopping and saying, what am I modeling? What am I modeling to them about this behavior, about how I react and about what I do? And this EEG development came from, if you look at the stress responses, if you're in the woods and you see a bear, right? And you have a reaction and then you run. And then you turn the corner and there's another bear, and then there's another bear, and then there's another bear, right? And this is stress response. And during this time, you lose nutrients, right? You're spending more time in fight or flight, so your body isn't repairing all these things. And all of the things that I did for many years helped repair that. Replace the nutrition that you lose directly from running from a bear, B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, things like that. And also herbs that can help kind of modulate that response, right? But here's the problem. When you've run from enough bears, your brain starts to anticipate another bear. You know, you sit down, take a nap by the tree, you start to fall asleep, and you hear a rustle. Oh, was that a bear? Oh, there must have been a bear. And then you go off on this whole tangent of where's the next bear? How am I going to get away from it? And so we get in our own heads. And then what starts to happen is our fear response starts triggering the adrenal response. So it's come from a physical adrenal issue, and now it's turned into a brain signaling issue. You could have two people, same roller coaster, while we're on the Disneyland.
Yeah,
We're
I love
both on
this.
the
I love
same
this
roller
story, by
coaster,
the way.
right?
This is great. I totally identify to this one.
Yeah, so you're
Yep.
on the same roller coaster, right? Same hill, same speed, two people, side by side, same car. One person throws their hands in the air and they're like, yes, this is so much fun. And the other person is white knuckling it like, oh my God, I'm going to die, right? Same environment, same stressor, same bear, two different reactions to the bear. So the real wake up moment for me was I started to say, well, wait a minute, what am I modeling? What am I teaching to future generations? And how am I shaping their brain? And is there a way to come at this from the brain? And we talk about, you know, you could follow all the greats. Dr. Joe Dispenza, a great one, right? How do we retrain the brain? I've personally done hypnosis. You know, I've done all these things to try to change the way that my brain sees the world. But this isn't mainstream. And the dismissal that people are getting is, yeah, stress is involved. Just go meditate a little. Just let it go. Like, just let it go. Drop the stress a little bit. They dismiss it. But when you're in that programmed mode where your brain anticipates another bear, you can't physically pull yourself out. And this is when you hear people say, I can't meditate. I try. I've done it all. I can't do it. So when I started to look at the brain, I said, well, is there a way for us to see how we see the world as an individual person? Is there a way to see if we have negative self-talk patterns? If we're motivated by criticism or motivated by support? Do we respond to long sessions of meditation, short little bursts of meditation? What types of activities keep my brain happy? So when I started to explore this, there's a colleague I actually went to school with way back in the day that started looking at this on his quest to prevent suicide in the youth. And he started to find that the same brain could become an Olympic athlete or a drug addict. Same environment. You'd often see this in the same household, right? One child, same parenting, same roller coaster. One all of a sudden is driven and becomes incredibly successful, and the other one takes a negative path. Why? And so he started to interpret these brain maps even further. And I've been working with him to help people understand, what does your unique brain respond to? So when I did mine, turned out that I respond very well to creative outlets. I love creativity. When I get stuck and I feel stressed and I feel overwhelmed, the best thing that I can do is something creative. Ironically, in hindsight, that's my favorite part of my business, is the creation. The little technical stuff stresses me out. If I could plan programs all day and create and coach other people to open themselves up, and that's what I do, basically, those creative treatment plans, those creative outlooks at things really light me up. And my brain, my beta waves go down and my theta waves go up and my alpha waves go up, right? And I can change myself from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state by high activity levels and creative outlet. Things like board games with my family, close interactions. It goes so specific to that. When you start to look at the brain, we can see, are you someone that's an Olympic athlete? You're a focused achiever. You need a win. You need to be constantly going towards small little goals versus big goals. How do you respond to criticism? Do you internalize it as negative self-talk and say, I'm not enough? Or do you take it as a motivator to run to that goal? So by doing this, what's been so incredibly cool is now people can understand how their brain sees the world. They can adapt their environment. They can speak differently to their children because now they understand how their children interpret the world. Their spouses can now communicate with them differently. And now you have a different dynamic where everyone is working together towards success. And ironically now, because we've downregulated that fear response, now we're giving ourselves things that bring us joy. Now our adrenal glands are not as hyper-responsive. And now we have less inflammation. And now our thyroid is working better. And now those bioidenticals are working better. And now our nutrition is better. And now we have less bloating. And now we're not as tired. And now we're laughing more, right? And now we're seeking things that bring us joy, right? So it's been amazing, and it's still in early development, but I'll tell you, Tim, like, it was a game changer for my family. One of my kids that was struggling in school now isn't struggling in school anymore. Attention issues are better. They're making choices that are unique to them and their unique profile because they understand how they see the world. And this is not mainstream enough. And I'm putting it out there right now. I'm bringing it. I'm bringing it out to the world because I want to change the world. I want to stop this generational burnout, this generational inattention, this fear response, so that we can actually thrive. Because all the medication, all the supplements, all the nutrition in the world won't help if you're living in fear.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets you to a certain level, but you're right. It doesn't really take care of the things that you really need to take care of. And that's what's going on in the brain and some of these fears that you have, the stress that you have. So what would you recommend to a busy practitioner? Because, you jumped right into business, of course, and it was great meeting you so many years ago, when you first stopped on by our Mindshare Summit and then ended up joining our mastermind. It was so great to see how your business just evolved. But what would you recommend to somebody who feels like they're stuck? They're stuck in this mode. They're not sure, whether what they're doing is really mattering in the world. They don't know what that creative outlet is. They've got a lot of stress going on personally, professionally. Their business may be underwater right now. So I think this is a great opportunity for the audience to really understand the path that you took to knowing that this was a roller coaster, right? There were a lot of ups, a lot of downs, personal, professional, but you were just you are the perfect example of somebody who just has so much light, so much love that you just want to share it with the world. And, that you've got this creative outlet that you love to do. And it's so great to see you on social, really, really bringing that forward because, as the hip hop doc, right? It's so important that you show yourself and show your true identity as to who you are. And I think it's very magnetic. People will look at that and say, oh my God, she looks like she's having so much fun, and I would just love to get, in front of her so I could figure out what's going on with me because I get her and she gets me. And that to me is what you're bringing out in the world is that connection.
Thank you, Tim. That was lovely. Thank you. I was up speaking recently and at a conference, and I was sharing my story. And a girl came up to me afterwards and she said, Dr. Pingel, when you walked in, I thought you had it all together. I thought, I can't learn from this woman. She's got it all. And by breaking down the story and talking about the vulnerability and how we all struggle with identity and imposter syndrome, and you can have everything from the outside and feel lost in the inside, was a real eye-opening moment for her. And it touched my soul as well. So when you ask, what can we tell a professional? I would say the first thing is you are beautiful. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are enough. And then take a beat because we all are enough. We all have these goofy, weird things about us that we're afraid to bring forward. And I was actually at a mastermind retreat and I was laying on the floor with Dan, and I was doing a meditative session. And I've been struggling with this for years. How do I say what I am? I just kind of am what I am. I don't know how to package that. And that's what I was struggling. I don't know how to package me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And you take all this input. Am I supposed to do a program? And you get so technical in little details of what you're supposed to do, and you forget who you are. And I was laying there, and he screams at me, Tricia, just let it out. Just let it out. And I just let it out. And I left and I came home and I started my podcast and I started talking and I said, we all have a voice and we're afraid. So I would ask people to step back for a second. Ask, what are you afraid of? And is this a logical fear, right? When I wrote down everything I did in a day and everything I worried about in a day, and I went through and I said, should I take this on? Should I delegate it? Or should I let it go? I let go of 90% of the things that I worry about in a day. And I was able to really get clear on who I am. And when I get stuck, the first thing I do, and my kids actually kick me out of the house now. If I seem stuck and stressed, they're like, Mom, go dance. Get out of here. Go do a dance class. I dance 7 days a week now. I started at 1 day a week. I dance 7 now. And the reason being is that when I go off and dance, when I come back, I'm my true, authentic self. I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. And those are where my best ideas come out. So if you feel stuck, like you're inundated with ideas, you can't make a decision, you're in decision fatigue, You are disconnected from that beautiful, lovely, wonderful self that you are. So find a way to tap into that beautiful, lovely, awkward, strange thing that people may judge, and then do that, whatever that may be. And for me, it was looking to when I was a kid. What did I love to do? I loved to do two things when I was a kid, right? I loved to dance, and I loved to build houses out of books for my Barbies. So I love to decorate. So my kids know when I'm stressed, because when they come home, the living room is totally different. Like the couch will be in a different place, or there'll be new pictures on the wall or something. So learning those things that really allow you to relax into who you are is really important. And you are enough. You are enough. You do not have to continue to be what other people want you to be. I fight with that still every day. Oh, you should just start a program. I don't want to start a program. It's not what I want to do. I want to get out and I want to help people. I want to lift people up. I want people to know that they're enough. I want them to understand that they have everything they need right now to do everything they want to do in life. And that's my advice.
Yeah. I mean, I love this because sometimes you just don't need to create a program to just look at life and say, it is a beautiful life. I woke up today, and not a lot of people did today, and just experience that and just lean into that and realize that you have unique abilities and that you need to share those with the world. And it's okay to be quirky.
I love quirky.
I mean, people enjoy it. Like, you don't have to be fearful of it. And your advice is beautiful because it really gives the individual to just release. And the fact that you released 90% of it, that you screamed, through Dan's guidance, it's like, just let it out. Sometimes you just got to let it out. And whether that's in a quiet room, whether that's in a park, whether that's in your car, whatever it is, just let it out. And guess what? It's not that you signed up for this high ticket program that Dr. Pingel created. It's, you just realize, like, oh, that's all I had to do. And I can start to get things in motion. And, we look at trying to get to the root cause of certain things. It doesn't have to be this, this very complicated path and all these things. Sometimes it can be just as simple as doing the simple things. We overtreat. We're like, oh, you want to heal your adrenal fatigue? Well, here's the huge program that we're going to give you with 1,000 different things. And we want you to do it perfectly, right? And then it's just more things. And I think there's a huge value in just letting go. Yeah.
And trusting. You said, I often say, people say, well, how was your day? What's the best thing that happened to you today? And I'm like, I woke up. My dad didn't have that luxury. He woke up, he was dead. My mom didn't wake up that day. My stepdad, who just died last year, he didn't wake up, right? My grandparents didn't wake up. One day they were just gone. And when I think of legacy and I think of, well, what do I want to pass forward in life? Do I want to pass forward that I was this amazing adrenal doctor? I mean, that's great. And I'm happy and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of every single patient that I've helped, and every single patient that's helped me grow as a practitioner has been game-changing. But no, I just want someone to say, oh man, I'm going to miss her. She was so fun. I just really lit up when I was around her, and I felt good around her, and she was great, and she was an asset to my community and my life because she was just there. That's my legacy, right? And I think when, as practitioners, we get so hung up on this big thing of what we need to be, when really what we need to be is just remembered, of being a really cool, down-to-earth person. And when that's your only goal in the day, it's really easy. Just smile at someone.
Yeah.
Starts it right out the gate. Like, that's it. Go to the grocery store or go to your coffee shop and say, hey, good to see you today. And you just did that. Now that person, if you were to die in the next 3 minutes, is going to say, well, oh God, I just gave her coffee today and she really lit me up. And when you look at life in that way, of the next interaction I have, I just want to pass along joy, your health gets better. And it's easier to commit to the diet. It's easier to commit to the exercise. It's easier to commit to your stress relief because you're now passing forward this uplifting energy. And that's really the key, in my opinion, to health, is paying it forward in energy and love as opposed to protocol constantly.
Oh,
I do protocols, Tim. I'm not going to say if you come to me as a doctor that I don't do protocols, but they have to include this piece. Otherwise, it's not going to work for people. They have to be motivated to want to stay on that journey. And that comes from feeling good about yourself and feeling worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as practitioners, as individuals growing up in the world of medicine and health, they always feel like they have to be smarter. go to that next clinical conference, go sit in that room, learn as much as you can, and try to digest it and try to explain it to your patients. And they don't want to see a robot, especially in this day of AI, because trust is at an all-time low. They want to trust you, and they want to see you. Not only do they want to see you, they want to see who you are. They want to get to know who you are. They want to get to know that you're a hip hop dancer, like you're the hip hop doc. They want to see that you have a family, and they want to see you doing things and enjoying life, because that's who they want to connect with. It's, being able to be healthier. Yeah, it's a challenge. And when you do need to go see a doctor, you don't want to go see a robot, a machine who just throws a lot of science at you. You want to have somebody who has empathy, and they know who you are when they walk in that door. They know exactly who it is. And of course, you're going to have your staff, they're going to be following your example. So when they walk in, they're going to get an immediate experience of, this is Dr. Pingel's office. This is what she does. And her staff is so aligned with what it is that who she is. And that's so important, because sometimes we don't talk enough about the business of health and what practitioners need to do. And we all, as practitioners, I'm not a practitioner, but health business owners need to look at a way of changing how they are being perceived, how they're, what that environment looks like, whether it's a virtual environment, whether it's an in-person environment. They want to know that you're authentic, and that your staff is authentic, and that your care is authentic.
Yeah. And I actually, when my mom was going through cancer, when I was going through adrenal fatigue, I had a traditional fee-for-service practice, and I was seeing, for a naturopath, seeing 12 patients a day is a lot. And I would just see them back to back. And I went in there one day and I couldn't remember somebody. I couldn't remember what I talked about with them. And I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. If I don't remember who they are, what am I doing here? I don't get it. And that's when I made a switch to go to concierge medicine. And I did that. Once again, I'm a quick decision maker. I just did it. It just was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. And it allowed me to be home with my mom and care for her when she needed me. And it also allowed me to really develop those deep relationships. And anybody can Google the protocol for how to heal adrenal glands, or right now the AI is going to give the protocol, but not everyone can connect on that personal level. And when I opened my concierge, it was the same for my fee for service, but particularly when I went into concierge, I thought, okay, this is my home. If I brought someone into my home, I would ask them if they want some water or some tea, maybe a cup of coffee. I would lead them into the living room, have them sit down, have them meet the dog. My dog, Piggy, she is here with me today. She comes to work with me
Piggy.
every day.
Piggy has traveled many mastermind retreats. I love it.
And my office is the same way. They come in, I give them a hug. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so good to see you. And Piggy comes up and greets them, and I offer them a latte or a cup of tea or water. And we start with, how are you? Like, what you been up to? How are the kids? How was your recent trip? And the first part of the office visit is spent just getting to know them and what are they experiencing in their life? Because when you're treating people, you have to understand it holistically. You have to understand their support system. You have to understand how they see the world. Before you dive into, well, here's what we're going to prescribe today, right? Or here's the pain that I'm having in my side, or whatever. And that has been a game changer for me as a practitioner, just really honing in on that natural hosting ability and welcoming energy that I have. And we get real caught as practitioners into, well, let's just do all these procedures. Let's just inject them with things and do things. And there's a really important component that comes before that, which is really welcoming them into your home and caring. And the minute that we stop caring as a practitioner, it's time to make a shift, because we're not going to get anywhere by going into our lives every day like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring this around full circle around stress. If they walk in stressful, guess what? They are not going to be open to your advice, to your coaching, to your treatment plan. They're going to be resistant, and that's not the environment you want to set up. So I love the fact that you set this up like it's your home, because they walk in, they have this relaxed feeling, and now they're open to whatever ideas or thoughts that you have to bring forward about what that root cause is, because it allows them now to share about, like you made mention, what is it that they grew up in? What are the stresses they're facing now, challenges they're facing in their life, whether it's personal or professional. That's a part of the story. That's a part of the root cause story, to say it may not need an injection or a pill. It may just need some mindset change that like they walk away feeling so much better because they were able to release, exactly like you said, right? You just get it out and just go and release the things that aren't serving you anymore. And as a doctor, that's really what it comes down to. You are there to provide care, and care doesn't mean that it's just a treatment of a symptom. It's really about understanding what's challenging them in their lives.
Yeah, and empowering them to make a decision. I don't tell people what to do. I listen, and I provide opportunity for them to have a conversation, for them to bring to me what they read about on Instagram and what their friend is doing and what their neighbor's doing and what about this. And I let them ask all those questions and I answer them. And then we have a conversation. It's a collaboration. It's not a dictatorship. Medicine is not, I'm the doctor. I'm going to put on the white coat and here's what I'm going to do. In fact, if I can tell a quick story on that. When I was graduating med school, we had an exit exam, right, where we did a mock patient. And we had to go in, see this mock patient, do all the diagnosis, and then we got evaluated at the end. And I must have been ahead of my time. I don't know. But I go in, I do this, whatever. It was gallbladder disease. Easy. Check the box. Great. No problem. And I'm sitting there just shooting the shit with the patient. Oh, well, what do you do? What do we, kind of doing my thing. I had already diagnosed it in about 3 seconds. And I thought, well, I've got them for 15 minutes. Why don't we learn more about their health? And I left and I sat down with the advisor afterwards. And she said, well, first of all, great job on getting the diagnosis. You asked the right questions. You got it done. That was great. But you really need to back off on the personal talk because you are the physician. You wear the white coat. And when you get too close to the patient like that, it's a liability for you. It's a problem. And my best advice to you is you need to, hold your ground and your authority. And I looked at her and I said, I really appreciate your opinion, but I actually disagree with you. And I said, health is holistic. And that girl will now come see me as a patient. And her feedback when we read it, it said, I loved this woman. Please keep me posted on what she has to practice. I want to see her. It wasn't because I diagnosed her gallbladder disease, her mock symptom. It was because I took the time to make her feel comfortable to share. And that is medicine. That is game-changing medicine right there, is opening up a conversation. That's our passion. That's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like they say, food is medicine. And guess what else is medicine? Connection.
Love. I know.
Yeah. Love. It doesn't have to be that hard. Really?
No.
It's that simple. Like just
take care of you first. Take care of you first. If you don't take care of you, you can't find that place. Then every patient with a complaint becomes annoying. And that's where I was. They would come in and I'd be like, oh, great, here we go again. You know what I mean? And when I found myself feeling that way, I knew I was malaligned. I was like, this is not going to work for me. I can't show up every day and wake up every day and be malaligned and hate my job. That's not an option for me. So if you're finding that, it means we need to kind of back up and go back to why are we here in the first place and what lights us up and what gives us passion, and take care of you. Find your hip hop dance, whatever that may be.
I love that. And listen, it's why doctors burn out.
Oh, yeah.
Right. They burn out because of that. They just aren't aligned with their true,
the pressure of the social media. Oh, now I have to go on social media. Now so many people have that. I didn't have any trouble with it because I was like, well, crap, here I am. Like, if you don't like me, don't follow.
Right? You have the right. You have the right not to follow me. So I'm just going to put it out there, and whoever aligns to it, then great. If not, then go find somebody else. I may do that.
Yeah.
Tricia, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation, and it's unlike anything I've had. To be honest. And it was so heartwarming. And I hope that the audience gets a tremendous amount of value out of this. And it walks away, and they walk away and they're like, what is my hip hop?
What is my hip hop?
What is that thing I'm going to choose?
Music. Feel your music. Yeah. Find your joy. Yeah. Just feel it. Yeah. Find it. It's there somewhere. I just love being here. Thank you for giving me a space to be here.
Well, you're so welcome. We always love you and everything that you do and all the people that you serve and the love that you put out to everybody. Listen, I mean, this world is a better place because of you and how you show up in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.